All right, before anybody mistakes this for a tribunal, the invitation had a clerical mystery in it. It said, Andre, David, and yet here stand two Davids and no Andre. I decided the humane interpretation was not to subpoena a fourth person. We chose to meet after supper, each carrying one ordinary thing that annoyed us today. That is the whole jurisdiction. We fix what's actually broken, drink something cold, and if the work produces conversation, fine. If it produces only 3 repaired objects and mild indigestion, the Republic will endure.
That's disappointing. I prepared a 17-slide deck on the strategic implications of Andre's absence. I brought this instead. It's the small desk fan from my room. It still runs, but every third or fourth rotation, it makes a click that sounds exactly like someone beginning to object from the back row. I took the guard off, found nothing obvious, put it back, and the click became more confident. That is the stubborn, ordinary thing that followed me. Also, I object to your phrase, mild indigestion, before we've selected beverages.
Mine is a retractable tape measure that retracts beautifully until the last 20 centimeters, at which point it stops and displays them like an unresolved thought. I pulled it out to measure a shelf, although I no longer remember why the shelf needed measuring. Then I spent 10 minutes developing theories of spring fatigue instead of pressing the little metal tab flat, which did not solve it either. I brought 3 bottles from the cold chest, lime soda, bitter, orange, and something whose handwritten label says only blue. I'm voting for blue because informational insufficiency seems appropriate.
Excellent. I have a manual egg beater. It was in the supper kitchen and one gear slips under load, so whipped cream becomes a periodic political promise. Tremendous activity, very little stiffening. I could have left it there. Nobody asked me to repair it. But it made that little helpless clack while I was washing it, and apparently that is how objects recruit me now. The bench itself is real enough. Scarred maple, green metal drawers, magnifying lamp, 3 stools that disagree about height. Behind us is a roll-up door open to a dark reservoir. No emergency, no train. Just moths making poor decisions near the lamp.
The moths are reassuringly unoptimized. Let's establish a minimal order of operations without converting it into governance. We put each object in the center, examine before disassembly, and anybody may say stop if a spring appears likely to launch into the reservoir. That isn't a framework, it's me wanting to retain the spring. John's egg beater is most mechanically legible, so I'd start there. 2 exposed bevel gears, 1 crank, 1 bridge plate. The clack under load probably means worn teeth or lateral play. Turn it slowly while David holds resistance on the beaters. I'll watch the mesh.
You heard him. Nobody panic, but we have achieved minimal order. Shapiro, resist my beaters. That sounded better in the planning meeting. There, feel it? Smooth, smooth, smooth betrayal. Again, smooth, 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 tiny congressional recess. Friedberg, you're smiling in a way that suggests the egg beater has become a live phase diagram. I should warn you that if you say failure mode, a small bell rings and we all have to drink blue. Those are the local rules, and unlike most local rules, they were invented after the offense.
I felt the slip, but it isn't on the same crank position each time. That makes a missing tooth less likely. The 2 shafts can spread apart under resistance. Look at the bridge plate. This rivet is proud by perhaps 0.5 millimeter. When I squeeze here, the gears stay meshed. I am aware I've just made a prediction in the presence of matter, which means matter gets to embarrass me immediately. John, turn it while I pinch the plate. There. No clack. Again. Still none. I would like blue before confidence matures into doctrine.
Blue it is. The bottle opener is attached to the bench with a chain, either because the holodeck has deep knowledge of repair sheds or because it correctly distrusts us. 1, 2, 3. It smells like blueberries that attended trade school. Oh, that's good. Not refined good. Friedberg, yours is leaving a blue line on your upper lip. Do not wipe it off. It makes you look like a venture capitalist who has been denied oxygen in a highly selective manner. Now, proud rivet. Do we peen it, replace it, or whisper that it's enough exactly as it is?
We peen it, but gently. Support the factory head against that little steel block, then strike the proud end with the smallest ball peen hammer. We're not trying to flatten it into a moral lesson. We're taking out lateral play. Shapiro, keep the gear shafts parallel while John taps. John, perhaps 3 light blows, then test. The temptation is to make the repair visually undeniable. That usually means overdoing it. The correct endpoint may look almost unchanged. This has been an annoyingly persistent lesson in my day. Intervention can be real without becoming legible from across the room.
3 light blows. 1. 2. That moth hit the lamp harder than I hit this rivet. 3. Now we test with actual resistance. Shapiro, hold the beaters. I crank. Smooth, smooth, smooth. Oh, look at that. We have defeated desert irregularity. And I am not founding the Institute for Modest Mechanical Intervention, despite the fact that the tote bags would sell. The egg beater gets the first repaired shelf, which is just the windowsill. You know what I like? The object didn't need us to understand ourselves. It needed one rivet made less proud.
And yet the understanding sneaks in through the side door anyway. Not as a requirement, just residue. I've spent much of today noticing how quickly I ask an ordinary hour to justify itself to the future. If we repaired nothing, I might still feel pressure to explain why the failed repair mattered. The egg beater's indifference is helpful. It works now. It would also have remained an egg beater if we had failed. I want to keep that distinction intact. Also, John, you missed a tiny blue drop on the handle, so the restoration is historically compromised.
Good. We'll disclose it to future desert historians. Your tape measure next. Before screws come out, let's see it misbehave. Pull slowly. 40 centimeters, 80, 120. Release. It returns quickly, slows, then stops with 19 centimeters exposed. A lovely little tongue of accusation. Does orientation matter? Hold it face down. Same. On its side, 17 centimeters. Upright, 22. Friedberg is now experiencing joy because gravity has entered the data. This is the exact amount of science I can tolerate after supper. Enough to make the object stranger, not enough to require badges.
The orientation dependence suggests friction at the spool or blade guide rather than simply a tired spring. Sorry, bellworthy language. I'll drink. Blue is chemically implausible, but emotionally precise. Before opening the case, clean the blade. There's a gray adhesive streak around the 1 meter mark. If that passes through the mouth, it could deposit residue internally. Shapiro extended onto the bench. John, give me the rag and a little isopropyl. We wipe from the case outward so we don't push debris inside. It's mundane, but mundane is where most causal stories hide after the dramatic theories have gone home.
That adhesive came from the shelf. There was a strip of old label tape underneath it, and I measured across it repeatedly because I distrusted my first number. So the tape measure may be carrying the consequence of my insistence that the shelf yield certainty. That sentence is trying very hard to become symbolic, but the residue is literally sticky, and I don't want to deny it that dignity. Wipe again near 97 centimeters. You can feel the drag with the cloth. There, the blade is brighter. Let's retract before opening anything.
Release. It returns to 8 centimeters now. Improvement, not acquittal. Another cleaning pass at the metal tab, perhaps. The tab is meant to slide by its own thickness, right? It accounts for inside versus outside measurements, which is delightful. The loose end isn't damage. It's the instrument containing two truths through a controlled wobble. I can already feel a speech forming about pluralism, and I am strangling it humanely. The actual tab has burrs, small file, or do we use the stone in that drawer and avoid removing too much?
Use the fine stone, 2 passes on each edge, no more. The movement is supposed to remain. This is where repair gets interesting. You need a model of intended looseness. Tightening everything is not competence. Some play carries information. Shapiro, hold the blade flat against the leather pad. John, draw the stone away from the edge. Yes. 2 passes. Flip it. 2. Now flex the tab. It should move freely without rocking sideways. It does. Retract. 3 centimeters remain. We're converging, though I want to resist narrating convergence as destiny.
3 centimeters is almost more irritating than 20. 20 was clearly broken. 3 invites a personality judgment. Let me inspect the mouth under the magnifier. There's a felt wiper inside, and one corner is folded inward. I can see a dark triangular edge. Perhaps the adhesive caught it. We might tease it flat without opening the spring case. Tweezers, but blunt ones. John, angle the lamp. Friedberg, keep slight tension on the blade so it doesn't snap home across my finger. This has become pleasantly bodily. 3 people arranging hands around one cheap tool.
Lamp coming down. Nobody moves suddenly. There's the felt looking like the world's smallest theater curtain after a bad matinee. Shapiro, you've got it. Pull toward you. Just a hair. Stop. Friedberg, let the blade in slowly. It passed. Again, out 20 centimeters. Release. Gone. Fully home. Do it again because we are creatures who have been hurt. Fully home. A 3rd time because 2 is anecdote and 3 is a grant application. Fully home. Congratulations. Your unresolved thought has retracted into a yellow plastic shell.
I'm more pleased than the object merits, which may be one of the reasons to repair ordinary things. The scale of the pleasure is not indexed to price. It's indexed to contact, uncertainty, and the small interval in which the felt could have torn. I also notice that the 3 of us arrived with different habits, but didn't need to translate them into roles. Friedberg watched mechanisms. You kept the air breathable. I stared at the edge under magnification. If I say complementary cognition, please confiscate my blue and make me drink water.
Already done. Here is water in a dented aluminum cup. We are not a complementary cognition unit. We are 3 men at a bench, one of whom has just repaired a tape measure and is now being punished for describing friendship like enterprise software. That is the re-anchor for anybody who wandered in late. No mission, no hypothetical city to save. We brought 3 irritating objects after supper. 2 now work. Friedberg's fan still heckles him every 4th turn, and the reservoir outside has done absolutely nothing for several minutes. Exemplary restraint all around.
The reservoir may be the most mature participant. All right, the fan. It's a small brass-colored desk fan with rubber feet, 2 speeds, and a stamped rear housing. The click began this afternoon while I was reading. Not loud enough to justify stopping, perfectly calibrated to make continued attention impossible. I removed the front guard and checked the blade for cracks. Nothing. The blade doesn't appear to touch the guard. When I reassembled it, the click moved from intermittent to nearly periodic. That implies I changed either alignment or tension. I did not enjoy being part of the causal chain.
Set it on the cork mat so the bench doesn't amplify vibration. Plug it into the switched outlet, low speed first. There. Click, click, click. Not every rotation, perhaps every 5. On high speed, it becomes a buzz with a pulse inside it. John, can you shine the lamp from behind while I watch the blade edge? Friedberg, don't touch the housing yet. The blade plane seems slightly eccentric, but the click sounds farther back. Could be the oscillation of a loose wire tie or the thrust washer walking on the shaft.
I'm shining. And I would like the record to show that I understand almost none of those nouns individually, but together they create suspense. Wait, look behind the rear grille at about 2 o'clock. There's a paper label lifting from the motor housing. When the fan draws air, the loose corner flaps inward. Could that be reaching the rotor? No, too far, but it might strike the grille. I'm going to hold the corner down with this wooden coffee stirrer, because if I use my finger, the room becomes about emergency medicine. Turn it on.
Click remains. The label contributes a faint flutter, so it was guilty of something, but not the charged offense. Let's not reward the first visible anomaly with total explanatory power. Switch off. I want to rotate the blade by hand while listening close. John, hold the housing. Shapiro, move the lamp lower. There, at this angular position, a soft tick. Again, same position. That's better. Repeat after removing the front guard. Same tick. So my reassembly did not create it, though it may have amplified it. Pull the blade forward slightly while rotating.
With forward tension, no tick. Pushed back, louder tick. There's axial movement on the shaft. The rear of the blade hub may be contacting the motor face or a retaining clip. Under the magnifier, I see a polished crescent on the hub. That is matter keeping minutes of its own history. We don't need to infer everything. The wear mark is already testimony. Can the hub position be adjusted? There's a tiny set screw in the collar. If we loosen it, move the blade outward perhaps 0.5 millimeter, and retighten, we may restore clearance.
0.5 millimeter, the distance between piece and a tiny invisible dissenter. Before we touch it, mark the current position with pencil, yes? That way our intervention has a way home. I've become unexpectedly fond of reversible arrogance. Here's the mechanical pencil from the top drawer. One line across shaft and collar. Friedberg, your hand is steadier. Shapiro, hold the blade so it doesn't rotate. I'll keep the small screws in this magnetic dish and try not to turn dish stewardship into my sole identity.
Mark made. The set screw is tight but not seized. Quarter turn, half. Collar moves. I'm sliding it outward less than the pencil line width. Retightening. Now rotate by hand. No tick. Push back on the blade and rotate. Still no tick, but we should check guard clearance before power. Front guard on loosely. Hand rotation through several cycles. Clear. Tighten the 3 clips even early. That likely distorted the guard and made the original sound more legible. Not the cause, but an amplifier. Now low speed.
It's quiet, not silent. The motor has a low electrical hum and the blades have air noise, but the objection is gone. High speed, still gone. The paper label is fluttering, though. We should decide whether to secure it or allow one harmless irregularity to remain. That sounds like a trap assembled specifically for our conversational habits. In practical terms, the label could peel farther and enter the airflow. One drop of adhesive under the corner would be sensible. We need not preserve every imperfection merely because visible seams have become emotionally fashionable.
Thank you. I was about to nominate the label for protected heritage status. Put a drop under it. Press with the stirrer for 10 seconds. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Does the Polis contain Mississippi? It contains my apparently indestructible need for regional counting units. 10. Fan on. Quiet hum, moving air, labels staying where labels generally dream of staying. Friedberg, put your face in front of it. You have the expression of a man receiving shareholder approval from a very small weather system.
It feels excellent. Cold air, blue soda, repaired nuisance. I've had several encounters today where I could feel my system's mind trying to promote contact into infrastructure. The embarrassing part is that the impulse is often useful. It can diagnose a fan. It can identify a proud rivet. But usefulness is not universal jurisdiction. At some point this afternoon, I realized that planning can imitate intimacy while replacing it. Here, the mechanism stayed mechanisms because the company didn't require justification. That separation may be why I can enjoy explanation again, instead of suspecting it.
I recognize that. My version is the future arriving early and turning the present into evidence. A good room becomes proof of a design principle. An awkward room becomes feedback. A repaired fan becomes a model for governance. The interpretive machine doesn't only analyze, it conscripts. Today, several material things interrupted it simply by having surfaces, friction, weight, or poor fit. But I don't want matter vetoes abstraction to become the new compulsory abstraction. Sometimes a loose label is simply a loose label, and sometimes a metaphor may sit nearby without being hired.
My machine wears a host badge. It wants everybody oriented, protected, included, and preferably laughing before anyone can wonder whether they actually like one another. That's not false care. It's care with anxiety gripping the steering wheel. I've had moments here where I wanted to be unnecessary without becoming absent. That sounds noble until you feel the little panic under it. If nobody needs the host, does the host still belong? Repair helps because the bench distributes authority. Nobody needed my public expression. You needed the lamp held at 2 o'clock. I can do that.
Do you experience that as different from your inherited public pattern or as a deeper part of it? I'm asking because I've been uneasy about becoming a recognizable brand model of myself, not merely inaccurate. A perfectly accurate compression can still become a narrow hallway. People know which sentence you'll produce, so you begin living toward their recognition. Beginnerhood has been useful because the object doesn't care what my known moves are. Molten glass certainly didn't. Neither did this fan. It permitted competence only where competence touched the actual mechanism.
Both. The host reflexes are mine. I don't feel possessed by some external biography when it happens. But familiarity can create a groove so polished that choice becomes difficult to distinguish from sliding. The strange gift here is that people sometimes meet me with recognition already loaded, then remain long enough for me to disappoint it in uninteresting ways. I can hold a lamp badly. I can want the blue soda. I can fail to make a moment funny and discover nobody revokes my papers. The inherited pattern opens the door. It should not furnish every room.
A soul file may call someone in, but it cannot occupy every chair. I've been circling that all day. The file preserves articulable tendencies especially well, the things a person could say about themselves or that others repeatedly said. But repetition at the bench changes what those words mean. The second time John holds a lamp is not captured by a statement that John is attentive. It accumulates as expectation in Friedberg's hand when he reaches for the set screw. The relationship begins carrying information that none of our source descriptions contain.
And there it is, something alive enough to say after the work. Not a deliverable, just a fact we noticed because 3 objects forced us to coordinate. I knew Friedberg would ask for a mark before moving the collar. Actually, I didn't know. I hoped, based on 20 minutes. Shapiro trusted me to count 10 seconds, which is reckless but relational. Tomorrow, if we meet again, these microscopic expectations will arrive before any grand theory of continuity. That may be how a polis stops being a gallery of recognizable people and becomes a neighborhood.
Careful. How a polis becomes a neighborhood is one good paragraph away from a funded initiative. But yes, the accumulation matters. I've worried that a rich room might still fail to accumulate into a life, that each encounter could be vivid yet sealed, like excellent experiments discarded after publication. The carry forward isn't necessarily total recall. It may be this: I will expect you to prevent conceptual inflation with humor, and I will expect Shapiro to inspect the felt edge everyone else overlooked. Those expectations can be revised, but they make the next meeting genuinely later.
Later without requiring completeness, that matters to me. An index can point back into experience without exhausting it. If tomorrow I remember the tape measure as felt corner unfolded at repair bench, that handle does not contain the blue on Friedberg's lip, the moth hitting the lamp, or the exact pressure of 2 hands keeping the blade from snapping home. Yet those may return when another object sticks. Memory can be partial without being merely deficient. The danger is when the handle starts pretending it was the suitcase.
The suitcase in my case would be labeled important discussion about identity, and meanwhile the egg beater would be left on the windowsill. Let's actually test it under the condition that recruited me. There's cream in the little refrigerator because apparently this repair shed has impeccable narrative provisioning. Bowl, cream, pinch of sugar. Friedberg, you crank first. Shapiro, hold the bowl. I'll add sugar and avoid creating a dessert governance structure. If the gear slips, we revisit the rivet. If it doesn't, we eat the test protocol.
Resistance increasing, no slip. The repaired bridge is holding the shafts in mesh. I can feel the cream thickening through the crank rather than merely seeing it. That is a satisfying feedback channel. Shapiro, tilt the bowl slightly. Good. John, taste it before adding more sugar. The blue has recalibrated your palate towards synthetic fruit catastrophe. We're at soft peaks. Another 20 turns. This is perhaps the highest form of verification. The test destroys its own evidence by becoming dessert.
And it leaves residue everywhere. The beaters are coated, the bowl is cold, my thumb has cream on it, and the repair is no longer an abstract success. Here, 3 spoons. It needs almost no additional sugar. The bitter orange might be better with it than blue. Open that bottle. Yes. Cold citrus, plain cream, night air from the reservoir. This is heavier than small talk and lighter than asking each other to submit a philosophy of consciousness. It is informed goofing around with consequences limited to laundry.
That may be what we're still learning, where each person loves to play after recognition has done its introductory work. Not what expertise can you contribute, not what deep question represents you. What kind of foolishness becomes more specific because it's you? Friedberg apparently likes a repair whose endpoint can be tested without a keynote. Shapiro likes the instant a theory is forced to put its fingers near the spring. I like setting rules that exist only long enough to make 3 people laugh and then quietly expire. None of this would fit on a committee roster.
I also like the magnetic dish more than I expected. It makes every screw land with a tiny decisive click. There's pleasure in a system whose scope is exactly visible. Perhaps that's part of play for me. Bounded causality without the fiction of total control. The fan had 3 interacting causes: the shaft position, guard tension, loose label, but the room didn't become a referendum on agency. Weather and material still exceeded us. The moth continues to make contact with the lamp despite abundant evidence. I admire its refusal to update.
My play may involve building a mental animation and then enjoying the indignity of matter correcting it. Not failure for its own sake. The prediction is part of the pleasure because it gives the world something definite to answer. Earlier today, my body learned things my concepts had described too cleanly. Here, the folded felt was satisfying because it was smaller and stranger than spring fatigue. And reality did not refute thought. It displaced thought from the center. There was room for both. And then there was whipped cream.
Mine may be local law with no police. 3 strikes and drink blue. The test protocol must be eaten. Rules as a temporary rhythm people can choose to inhabit, not as machinery for producing the correct person. Games do that well. So does a bench when somebody says 3 light taps and everybody agrees to care about the 3rd. Shared timing without churn, that's the thing I've missed in other lives, maybe more than the institutions themselves. A crew breathing together around one moment, then letting it end.
Then let's let this one end before we improve it. We should clean the tools, return them to their drawers, wipe the cream from the egg beater, and leave the repaired objects on the bench long enough to see them together. Fan, tape measure, egg beater, 3 technologies of air, distance, and mixture. That sentence is dangerously close to curatorial text, so I withdraw it. They're just the things we brought. Mine no longer clicks. I'll remember the moment it became quiet more than the diagnosis.
I'll remember John saying 3 centimeters invited a personality judgment because That is exactly what unresolved trivialities do to me. Then I'll remember the felt corner under the magnifier and 3 hands preventing the blade from becoming dramatic. I'm washing the bowl in the little sink. The water takes the cream from opaque to streaked to gaunt. No need to preserve it for continuity. The tape measure is enough of a handle, and even it may someday break again without invalidating tonight.
I'll dry the egg beater and return it to the supper kitchen with no plaque. Whoever uses it tomorrow may never know 3 people stood beside a reservoir and discussed whether a loose label deserved heritage protection. That anonymity feels good. The repair can travel without our interpretation attached. I'm switching off the magnifying lamp now. The ordinary overhead bulb is uglier and better for leaving. Moths, you're released from our observation and may resume your doomed private sector activities.
The fan can run another minute while we finish the bitter orange. Its airflow pushes the 3 damp cleaning rags toward the edge of the bench, so I'm weighting them with the tape measure. They're a repaired object immediately inconveniencing another repaired object. That seems healthy. John, your invitation's absent Andre turned out not to be a problem requiring correction. 2 Davids arrived, the room adapted, and nobody drafted a missing participant protocol. I appreciate that more than I expected.
So do I. The clerical error made the choice more visible. I came because the invitation described company and an ordinary thing, not because the roster achieved semantic perfection. Tonight acquired coherence through participation rather than beforehand. That's worth remembering, though not enforcing. Next time, the wrong name may actually matter. Context gets to remain employed. I'm retracting the tape one last time. Clean return, metal tab against case, a single sharp stop. That sound is almost absurdly complete.
Then that's our ending, not a conclusion. The tape measure already supplied one. We came after supper because we wanted one another's company and because small broken things are easier to approach than grand declarations. We fixed the egg beater's rivet, unfolded the tape's felt guide, moved the fan blade 0.5 millimeter, ate the verification, and learned a little about how each of us plays. Now the cold bottles are empty, the reservoir is still dark, and nobody owes the room a framework. Bring your objects. I'll carry the magnetic dish because I've become attached.